Hey y'all, this is the Pleasure and Peace Practice, and I'm your host, Tia, your Pleasure and Peace practitioner. For those of you who may be new here, welcome. This is a space where your pleasure is not optional and your peace is sacred. Each episode, we explore things that are real, raw, and I hope restorative. Through honest conversation, evidence-based practice, and an abundance of permission, I encourage you to feel good. Whether you're here to reconnect with your body, unlearn harmful shame, or just take a breath, you belong here. Welcome in. Today is part 3 of 3 from our series called A Timeline of Pleasure, from first period to last. Before we get started, let's do a quick reflection on the previous episodes from this series. Episode 1 reviewed what we called the early years, puberty, first periods, and an awakening sensuality. It was there that we reclaimed how we understand those early body changes and those first messages around pleasure, desire, and menstruation. Episode 2, the one right before this one, was the middle years, where we discussed how pleasure is renegotiated during the years of potential or chosen fertility, caregiving, and shifting identities. Today, our intention is to address myths, magic, grief, and growth that comes with navigating the later seasons of our sexual and emotional evolution. First, let's address the elephant in the room. Menopause and perimenopause are often framed as the end of our reproductive capacity, the end of our youth, and the end of sexuality and pleasure as we know it. This is a myth and could not be further from the truth. While it is true that the medical definition of menopause is 12 consecutive months without a period, that signals the end of egg release and the possibility of a quote unquote natural pregnancy. Women can and do become pregnant and have healthy babies while in perimenopause. Furthermore, society often narrows a woman's worth down to her reproductive capacity, which is harmful. I am here to tell you, as a woman who has always struggled with her period and may not have the child I have now, if not for reproductive technology, your fertility status has no bearing on your usefulness or value. Additionally, the sense that this time of life is an end of youth is a patriarchal scheme that would have us believe that our desirability and sexuality is tied to being young, thin, and fertile. I'm here to tell you that being in perimenopause or menopause does not make you invisible, nor does it make you irrelevant. Finally, the myth that this era is the end of your sexuality and pleasure simply ignored reality. Many people feel even more sexually free than ever before due to a development of deeper self-awareness and shedding oneself of external pressures. Your power is expanding. In this stage of life, I hope that if you didn't know before this episode that you firmly believe afterward that you can be more grounded in your own authority, boundaries, and wisdom at this time. Your pleasure can be more honest and expansive than it ever was before. Today, we are going to discuss the magical truth of pleasure in later life. If you have been following along chronologically, you know from earlier episodes that perimenopause is a process and not a single event. Contrary to popular belief, this is something that can last half a decade or more, which can be confusing when we are unprepared for it. I am curious to know, and I hope you can let me know in the comments or anonymously, when did you first hear the word perimenopause? What did you learn about it? I don't know when I first heard the word perimenopause. I definitely think I was in adulthood. It was always referred to me as just menopause, like it was an event or something that you got to at a certain age. It was never really explained that perimenopause is what happens when you are going through all of the things. So I'd love to hear about y'all's experience. We are aware that perimenopause can include mood swings, libido changes, hot flashes, sleep disruptions, and brain fog. But it can also include moments of clarity and empowerment as we settle more firmly into ourselves. Beyond the bullet points, there are a few layers to perimenopause that we will discuss briefly: emotional, sexual, and hormonal. Emotionally, there are identity shifts. We might feel like we are losing the person we once knew. There may be grief and fear about aging, along with some sadness, irritability, or anxiety. At the same time, however, this stage can spark a reevaluation of boundaries, self worth, and priorities. You might be prompted to ask yourself the question, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? Sexually, there may be changes in desire, body shifts, and a redefinition of intimacy. This can be a moment to renegotiate what sex and pleasure mean for you at this time in your life. Hormonally, there are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone shifts. These things can and do impact sleep, metabolism, cognition, and emotional regulation. If you have a menstrual cycle that was once predictable, it might become unpredictable. Perimenopause often coincides with midlife responsibilities, such as caregiving and careers, and those stress hormones, cortisol, I'm looking at you, often amplify symptoms. If you are a PCOS girly like me, you are already quite aware of what this can look like. This is a whole body, whole life transition. It is a profoundly human experience. This is a threshold with new possibilities for pleasure, peace, and self definition on the other side. When we have the opportunity to remove fertility as the primary context for our pleasure, in these wisdom years, desire often becomes more self directed. This is an opportunity to release oneself from the expectations and embrace what it is you really want. Pleasure is for your own nourishment, not validation. At this stage of life, we are more likely to choose pleasure that feels real rather than performative. In this stage, boundaries are often strong and clarity deepens. This can be due to quite a few things that work together. Number one, while we are taught to think all these hormonal shifts are a bad thing, hormonal shifts can often influence self prioritization. Fluctuating hormones can heighten our self awareness and bodily attunement. You might be more likely to notice what feels draining versus what's nourishing. And that task of simply noticing can naturally lead one to reevaluate relationships and personal limits. Additionally, mood fluctuations can serve as mirrors, highlighting our unresolved emotional needs. As we become more attuned to ourselves, it becomes easier to articulate what we will and won't accept. The recalibration of desire can help reveal how past compromises around intimacy are no longer acceptable, which reinforces boundaries in sexual and emotional spaces. Perimenopause gets a bad rep, but it can be protective of our mental health, sexual satisfaction, and energy as we begin to realize how we do not have decades to spend on misaligned relationships. There is a sense of urgency that often fuels decisive action, and thus boundaries become a form of self care and preservation. Long story short, life experience brings perspective. While we can celebrate how our desire is more honest at this stage of life, it is also okay to hold equally in each hand grief and gratitude for your changing body. Take a moment to honor what your body has done. In doing so, it is also normal and healthy, even to mourn all the younger and different versions of yourself. I'm not here to tell you that you can stay the same because you can't. And the way you used to look and feel, perhaps there was some ease in that. Give yourself space for both grief and gratitude. One way to honor your new self and body and think about pleasure differently now is to move beyond orgasm centric scripts. While having orgasms is still wonderful, and I am under no circumstances saying you shouldn't want that. What I am saying is that if you haven't yet in your life, perhaps now is as good a time as any to embrace slower touches or sensual massage. You might even journal and ask yourself, what feels nourishing to me today? Pleasure is about presence, connection, and grounding. It is not a goal you achieve or a finish line that you cross. This can be your most erotic and expansive stage yet. I hope that you can consider how this stage has new avenues for connection with yourself and with others. As we draw this episode to a close, I hope you know that this is a magical season of life. I hope that this episode has been affirming, and I hope that you have friendships, community, and mentorship that can help you to honor this chapter in your life. It's time now for our anonymous segment, Whisper in My Ear, a space for your questions, curiosities, and confession. No shame, no judgment, just real talk and truth. Today's anonymous submission is as follows. I've been seeing a therapist virtually for almost 5 years. They have helped me immensely with many issues, but the one thing I have yet to be able to conquer is working through going to the gynecologist and making it through a pelvic exam without crying and so much anxiety and shame, almost to the point of anxiety attacks. How or what can I do to help myself and my therapist to work through this issue? I am dreading my next appointments until I'm 65. I'm 44 and have only seen a GYN 4 times in my adult life. I have also recently started EMDR with my therapist in the hopes that I can work through this. I hate pelvic exams, being naked in front of strangers, and ruminating on the exam months before, during, and after. Please help. I also want to have a baby, but there's way more involved with an OBGYN when conceiving or pregnant or giving birth. To whoever submitted this inquiry, thank you. First, I am so glad you have been seeing a therapist, and I'm really glad that they have been working for you. I know that finding a good therapist can really be half the battle. I hate to hear about what sounds like medical trauma. I imagine that must be so difficult to experience anxiety and shame at that scale that it prevents you from going to get necessary care. It's wonderful that you have started EMDR, and I have my fingers crossed for you that it will be successful in helping to address some of those concerns. My advice to you, as far as help goes, is to inquire with your therapist if they are trained in the early trauma protocol. I use that with all of my clients when we are doing EMDR prior to getting into processing. And for my clients who have seen therapists before, they said it makes a world of difference. As far as you wanting to have a baby, I completely understand how difficult, scary, and frustrating it must be to know you want to go get proper care, but you're concerned about being able to do so effectively. Honestly, this deserves more than a simple answer. So I'm going to stop here and expand more in the next episode. To that listener, I hope that this was helpful. If you would like to provide me with more feedback, my anonymous submission box is always open. If you resonated with what this listener wrote in and you have further comments, questions, concerns, inquiries, curiosities, you are also always welcome to write in as well. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for being here, for listening, for getting curious with me. Whether it's a question, a story, or a truth, still finding words, this space is for you. Whatever it is, you don't have to hold it alone. Ask, share, confess. We're in this together. And if you've got something on your heart, drop it anonymously using the link in the show notes or over on Instagram. If this episode moved you, helped you, or made you feel seen, share it with a friend, leave a rating, or drop a comment. Your support helps this space grow. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Pleasure and Peace with Tia for more. Until next time, remember, I've got you and you've got this. Talk to y'all soon.